Hi, I'm Tori Epperson, author of Wendy, Where Does Our Wastewater Go? We here at DC Water work hard every single day to ensure that clean water is there when you need it. But have you ever stopped for a moment to think about where that water goes when you're done? Come find out with us during this story time and experiment. Wendy, Where Does Our Wastewater Go? This book was created by DC Water and Blue Drop. After we finish using water, where does our waste go? When flushing the toilet and doing the dishes, I wonder if anyone knows. Does your used water waste float to outer space? Can a rocket take it to Mars? No, the waste always drains downward from my home. I wonder if it travels far. Does it funnel out of our pipes, out onto the beach? Or does it just sit below ground, too far for us to reach? I heard Wendy the water drop may be able to explain where on earth we send the water after it goes down the drain. I grab my friends because they also want to solve the mystery. We go outside to find Wendy the water drop in the community. Hey, Wendy, I said, we have something to ask. How do we make dirty water clean, and why is it an important task? Have you ever heard the word wastewater? Let me tell you what this means. It is water that we've used and sent down the drain that now needs to be cleaned. Wastewater from local homes and businesses collects deep underground into miles of pipes called sewers, which are strong, big, and round. Wastewater goes through a cleaning process that involves machines, computers, and brains. We have all three at our Washington, D.C. treatment plant, Blue Plains. These sewers guide the wastewater's journey just below our town as it joins with the stuff from other sewers on its long journey down. But what happens to all the water when we have a heavy rain? Does water from these storms travel through the same maze of drains? What a good question. For heavy storms with rain, we must be prepared. In our city, wastewater and rain all flows through pipes that are combined or shared. When these two types of water are in the sewer together, overflows can happen in stormy weather. These overflows spill into the river and can cause pollution. So we built tunnels to send the rain to Blue Plains as our solution. Sewers are meant for human waste and water we have already used. They are no place for animals or wipes that can clog the pipes if they are misused. When our city's wastewater makes it to the treatment plant, Blue Plains, we begin to clean or treat it so that no more germs or objects remain. The process happens by removing the big things before moving on to the small. Step one is to capture the largest trash through screens standing tough and tall. Getting all the dirt and germs takes more stops in the wastewater's travel. Now we remove grit, which is what we call sand and gravel. Here, a tank large and round holds the water nice and still for a while. Oil and grease float to the top, and heavy stuff sinks to the bottom in a pile. From there, we introduce tiny bacteria to the poop. They swim around in happiness because they eat this remaining goop. Our bacteria eat and eat until they've had their fill of all the stuff in the water that would make humans, animals, and the environment ill. We take the solid waste, like poop, and turn it into something new, making what's left from the bacteria into helpful soil and energy too. Beds of sand and coal in a tank clean the water one more time. Their layers are from big coal to small sand so we can catch the last bit of grime. Last, we must disinfect the water to get any germs that are left behind by adding chemicals to the water at the end of the treatment line. We release the newly cleaned water into the river looking nice, so the river can be enjoyed by the people in our city and wildlife. Fish can swim and animals can use the water now. Who knew? Our friends at the local wastewater company work hard for the environment and for you too. The cleaned water at the end is not the same that we drink. We'll have to take another adventure to learn how it gets to your sink. The end. Thank you for joining us for story time. Now it's time to gather materials from around your house so that we can make and treat our wastewater. You'll need something to make the water dirty, such as tea or food coloring, rocks or dirt. And then you'll need something to clean the water to build a device, like a strainer, coffee filters, or sponges. Once you have those materials gathered, join us for the experiment. So the first thing that I'm doing to create my wastewater is I am adding in a little bit of tea to give it its color. And so if you don't have tea, you may be able to use coffee grinds or food coloring or something to that effect. I also have here a little bit of oil, cooking oil. And I also found a few things to add in to represent dirt, dissolved solids, and other things that would be in the wastewater. And I have a square of tissue. So right here, what I'm doing is just helping the tea along a little bit to get that color. And so while I'm doing that, I'll give you a fun fact about DC Water. It is the largest advanced wastewater treatment plant of its kind in the world. And we treat about 330 million gallons of wastewater every day. So just imagine, this may be only a couple of ounces of water. So we're just taking a little bit of time to get that tea in there. And with tea, the warmer the water, the better. So this is actually room temperature water, so that's why it's taking a moment. Got a little color change here. And I'm just dipping and squeezing the tea. Here we are. So the next thing I'm going to do is add in a little bit of my oil. And that's what it looks like. Lastly, I'm going to add in my mixture of leaves and dirt and other things. And give that a stir. And finally, I'll add in my tissue. And give that one last good stir. And here we are. This is what the wastewater looks like. So the next step is I'm going to assemble my wastewater and my cleaning materials. So I have a spoon, another cup, some cotton balls, coffee filters. I have a small strainer. I have a few rocks or pebbles, small ones, and a funnel. I also have something to write with and some paper. And the reason why is because we're doing an engineering task, and it's really important that all engineers follow a plan. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our something to write with and our paper and then make a plan. And that way, if we do something that works really well, we'll know what we did and we can follow those exact steps again. So I'm going to do steps. My first step is I think I'm going to use the strainer and the rocks. I'm going to put the rocks inside of the strainer like that. And then I'll just pour the wastewater through. And my thought process there is that maybe it'll catch some of the larger objects that are in the water, because that's how the wastewater treatment process works. We start with the largest items, as we mentioned in the book, and then we move down to the very small microscopic things that are too small for our eyes to see. So that's how I'm going to do my process, is I'm going to start by using the strainer and some of the rocks. So that's what I have drawn. I've done my best to draw the strainer and draw some rocks. And I am adding some labels to my drawing to make it easy for anyone who needs to take a look at my plan to see what I did. The second step in my plan is I think that I'm going to work on the oil, thinking about the components that are inside of my wastewater. So I'm going to go for getting the oil out, and I'm going to do that by simply using the spoon. So if we think about how oil and water mix or don't mix, if we let that water sit still for a second, the oil will float to the top. And so my thought process there is I'll use a spoon to scrape off or capture that oil that's at the top of the cup after I've gotten some of the larger items out of the cup. My third step, I'm thinking that I'm going to use the last of my materials, which is the funnel, the coffee filters, and so I'm going to put the coffee filter inside of the funnel like that. It takes a little bit of special maneuvering, but it'll stay. And then I'm going to add some cotton inside of the filter as well. And then I'm going to utilize that second cup and see if I can pour the contents of the remaining wastewater after I've taken the oil out through that cotton and that filter to see if I can get any last remaining stuff out of that water. And the goal is to try to make that water look as clean as it used to before we added the ingredients. So now I'm drawing the funnel. The next thing that I'm drawing is the coffee filter, and I'm adding those labels as well. So I'm going to label it filter. And then the last thing I'm going to draw is my fluffy cotton. And I'm going to label that cotton. So now we have our third and final step, and we have a complete plan. So now that my plan is complete, it's time to execute my plan, or it's time to follow my steps. So the first thing I'm going to do is combine the strainer and the rocks. And then I'm going to hold that over my second cup. And I'm going to be as careful as possible and do my best not to spill, and pour my wastewater over my new device. So as you can see, there's some stuff being left behind in the strainer. I see some of the leaves and some of the other dirt being left behind in the strainer and even in the cup. So that's positive because it's no longer in our water. So that's what's left in the cup. And you see what's inside of the strainer. I'm going to sit that to the side. And then that's what we have after our first step. So I'm going to grab my cup for step 2. And I'm going to use my spoon. And you can see those little dots at the top. That's oil. That's actually oil. So I am trying to scrape some of those little dots from the top of the cup, some of those oil dots, and put them back into the other cup. So I'm going to take a moment and do a little scraping. Yeah, this is a pretty tough task to do, grabbing all of the oil from the top. And that's also something that is really important to us at DC Waters, that you dispose of your oil properly by putting it into a container and tossing it in the trash instead of pouring it down the drain or down the toilet. So that's what you have there. I didn't quite get all of the oil, but I did the best that I could. So now I'm going to move on to my third step, which is using the funnel, the filter, and the cotton. So I'm starting with my funnel, putting that over the cup, adding the filter inside, and thirdly, I'm going to put the cotton inside of that filter. So carefully, I will pour the contents of my cup inside of that filter, and it's filtering through and going into the cup. Be very careful to make sure that you don't overflow when you're pouring things. So it's slowly funneling through, filtering through the funnel. And I'm going to help it along a little bit by lifting gently, very gently lifting the filter and allowing it to pass through both the cotton and the filter. And there we go, it's starting to drain a little bit faster. So again, I'm gently helping it through, giving it a little squish. Very gentle little squish to allow some of that to pass through, so I don't break the filter. And squeezing out the very last of it. I'm going to put that to the side. And here is what happened after step 3. So what do you think? Is that how clean we want our wastewater? Was it easy to go through all of those steps to clean that wastewater?
Thank you for joining us for this story time and experiment. I hope you learned and enjoyed today.